Hi everyone, and welcome back to Chill Mama House. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about perspective. So, a while ago, our other sister and I, she was washing the dishes, and she's shorter than me. So, she had gotten like water like on her, on her shirt, but it was like on like her chest area. And I'm like, are you really that short? Are you really that tiny that like you get it on your chest? She was like, yeah, I always get it in that area. Where do you get it? I'm like, my stomach gets wet. Like, and the difference in that is just our height difference. And the perspective in that to me was like, oh my gosh, duh, something as simple as washing the dishes, like we have a difference in that. So I wanted to talk about perspective because I feel like it shapes everything. Our perspective is what shapes how you see the world and how you project and pretty much how you are with everything. And so that was one example of perspective. I think for me personally, I view the world in a very different way, but I think everyone views the world in a different way.
I think so too.
What's something that you view that someone else differs on?
There will always be something that someone differs on. For me, growing up in the church, we were taught that like no sex, because sex is a sin unless you're married. And we're talking about like okay, well, a lot of people they get married just to have sex. So then you and I were agreeing like, well, you may as well just do it then, so that you don't have to go through the whole marriage thing just to get divorced, just because you were in it for the sex, so that you wouldn't be like sinning by having sex outside of marriage. And like our brothers didn't agree. I'm sure a lot of other Christians out there wouldn't agree. And I still consider myself a Christian. So I think like especially Christians out there, they would disagree with having sex outside of marriage, although a lot of y'all do it anyway. So I just feel like it's unintentionally like putting shame on those who might choose to do that. And I don't really like that, though I understand like why people would like be against it, because that's their values. So I just like to stress that like, hey, but not everyone has the same values as you. Like if you want to go according to the Bible and say, hey, I'm gonna save myself until marriage, great, like good for you. But not everyone chooses or wants to do that, and I think that that's okay. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. That's their choice, So I know that that's like a different perspective that a lot of people won't agree on, and I don't need people to agree with me on that. That's just
it's
mine.
your perspective.
And so I think it's interesting because like things like this, it can get heated because I think people get upset because like I identify as a Christian, and so if I don't believe what they believe as the normal Christians, I don't even know, then it's like it's heresy, and
because your perspective is not their exact perspective.
Yeah.
So
then
like
that's why I like that's why for me in my heart I know who I am and what I believe, but then to Christians I'm like, I don't identify as Christian to you because I don't really care. You can strip me of that title.
You don't fit the
and
mold.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Right.
So it's really interesting. But it's like get to know me for yourself and you'll see. You'll get to see if I like what I believe, what my values are.
And to go back to the like sex before marriage thing, it's funny, we're going back and forth with our brother about this. It was a good conversation. And he was saying like, because marriage is such a sacred thing, you shouldn't go into it just to have sex. And we're like, we agree, marriage is so sacred, it is such a beautiful thing. What a shame that someone would get married just to bang. So it's like we have the same mutual agreement on marriage is sacred. We agree on that. But how we go about that is different.
Yeah.
And so perspective, oh my gosh, I think it really, really became clear to me of how perspective is when I was in college, and I took an intercultural communication class, and we walked into class and my professor gave each student like a piece of paper with instructions on it. We were told you can't talk, you cannot share what this paper says with anyone, just follow the rules, I'll explain later. So I'm reading it, and it was like, okay, I was like, okay, we're gonna get some playing cards, and mine was like, the lowest card wins. When you win, you take the whole stack of cards. And so while I'm playing, mind you, we can't talk. So while I'm playing, when I put down like the lowest card and I won, and someone else put a higher card and she grabbed it, I'm like, huh, wait, no, that that doesn't make any sense. I won, but I couldn't say anything. So I was like, all right, whatever, let's just keep playing. And so like at this point, we're all confused. So we played for about 10 minutes and like nobody understood what was happening. And so after about 10 minutes, my professor just was laughing and she's like, was that game fun? And we're like, no, it didn't make any sense. No one was following the rules. And she's like, well, all of you have different instructions. And someone might have had the lowest card wins, someone might have had clubs win, someone might have had kings win. And so according to whatever it was that we had in our perspective, that was what was right. And so when in life, and especially in adulthood, I came to realize like, oh my gosh, my perspective only makes sense to me. Like in our family, no matter how chaotic it is, it makes sense to us. But when we explain to someone else, they can't wrap their head around like, your family's like, what? So
do you ever feel like sometimes it's exhausting for people to like see your perspective?
For them to see mine?
Yeah, like for you to have to explain it. Because for me,
oh, yes.
I get so tired. I'm like, can you just understand me? I don't want to explain myself.
Oh my gosh.
Get so tired. I don't want to.
Okay, I love that you asked me that, because when I share my perspective with someone, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just trying to get you to like, this is it, period. It is not up for debate. So it is frustrating for me trying to get someone to understand what I'm saying, because I'm not here to convince you to change your perspective. I just want you to see me for mine.
Yeah.
So does it frustrate you a little bit?
I just get, no, I'm like, and maybe because like for so long I felt like I had the need to like just explain and try to get people to understand me or give me the benefit of the doubt, or like I'm not a bad person, like a lot of you say that I am. But it's just like, so I'm at this point where I'm just tired of it, and it's just like you get me or you don't. And I think like, I don't know, it just takes in so much effort to even be around people who I feel like I need to explain myself, which is why I think it's easy for me to be around you, because I'm like, I can just relax and like my nervous system is just chill. And that's why I'm like, it's so nice to just be understood and to feel like, and to just be me. Like, I want to feel safe to just, you know how like there's awkward silence? I think we talked a little about this. I'm learning to really just love silence. And I don't want, because I feel like around people I don't know, they're probably going to have to feel like they need to talk about something. But for me, sometimes I'm just like, I just want to relax and feel okay with doing that. But, you know, I guess it's important to understand that, like, not everyone has that perspective. So that's why that's very important.
The perspective of, like, silence. Like, silence is okay.
Yeah. Because some people are like, I need to talk about something. Like, they're not comfortable with silence. But I think the older I get, the more I'm, like, enjoying silence. Like, we don't always need to be talking about something.
Oh, I mean, I love the question you posed about, like, is it ever like tiring for you to get someone to understand you? Because yes, especially when you feel like it's someone who should understand you. Like, how have you seen me, how have we spent so much time together and you still don't understand me? That to me is so disheartening, because it's like, oh, I'm so disappointed. But that's my need to be understood. It is a trauma response in itself. But for me, I also feel like when you care about someone and someone cares about you, I feel like they should naturally want to see where you're coming from.
Yeah. And I know earlier you talked about like what you learned in your college course. I also thought about what I learned in my college course, and we were talking about equity versus equality one time, and that gave me so much perspective.
Yes.
And it showed a picture of like a short person and then a tall person. And equality is like having the same amount of, for example, in this picture, same amounts of boxes to look over the gate to see a baseball game.
Right.
But equality, it was like getting what you need so that you can, you know, have what you need to be like kind of equal to others. So the shorter person had 3 boxes, and then the medium height person has 2 boxes, and then the tall person needed like 1 box, and that's it. And so I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense now, especially as Asian American women in this society, you know, and it gave me so much perspective about like being able-bodied and having an education and being in America and having immigrant parents and you know, having English be our second language and being a person of color. Like, it just opened my eyes to a lot of things I didn't really think about before like high school and before college. So that was very helpful for me, and I still carry that with me every single day.
It's such a good visual.
It really is.
I know exactly what meme you're talking about.
And it's not just like, I think people think everyone should just have equal whatever.
3
But
boxes for everyone. It just
yeah, but it's
doesn't
just
cut
like,
it. Yeah.
not everyone needs 3 boxes because they're so privileged. And then also maybe some people need more than 3, you know.
I think you opened up the floodgates when you were talking about being Asian American women. First, I want to talk about women. And like when women open up and talk about like their fears of, I think something that women all around the world, what we understand is our safety. Like when I go on a walk, I don't know about you, but I go on a walk with one headphone in only. And I feel like that's something that like a lot of men don't understand, is like when I express like some of my safety concerns, it just doesn't make sense to them. And I'm like, wow, what a privilege that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me when men just don't get it. They don't understand, like, well, if this and this, and it's like, no, the fact of the matter is that like we have these concerns. And then in the same way, when men share their concerns about like life, and there's a reason why male suicide rate is so high, life is almost like a fight of whose perspective is validated, whose reality is real. And I don't want us to fight on whose reality is more real than the other, because in actuality, we're both right in how we feel about certain things. Both of our perspectives are right. And I feel like people have a hard time noticing that.
Yeah. Like everything's not black and white, right or wrong. I think things could exist at the same time. We talk about this all the time.
Yes.
You know?
Y'all are going to get very used to
Like
this.
we're not just women, we're not just Asian American. We could be both and we're impacted by both. Like that's our intersectionality. Like, and I feel like we need to be more like aware of these things, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I love that you talk about equity, because I feel like that's something that people struggle with. I remember when stimulus checks were going out and I had seen people complaining about like, man, I don't understand why these people need stimulus checks. I get paid this much and I'm struggling too. But it's like, you don't need 3 boxes. Like, I'm sorry. And you know, capitalism is its own other issue, but it's like it pins people against each other when you feel like your perspective is far greater, more superior than someone else's. Like, it's really sad, because I just want everyone, you know, we talked about this, to just be, and to be is to allow someone to have their perspective.
Yeah. The way our system works is also very complicated too, because especially with like welfare programs, sometimes some people make a little bit too much and they can't qualify. And then some people are like, you know, right there, and then they're able to qualify, and then they like have more than the people who don't qualify. So it's really complicated.
That is so sad. Oh, I feel that.
Yeah, but perspective is everything. We grew up poor, and I feel like that gave me more perspective on life and just being grateful for what we do have. And I remember like seeing mom struggle as a single mom raising all of us, and I was just like, wow, I don't ever want her to struggle like that, nor do I want us to struggle in the same way.
Can I talk about the struggle? Like, have you ever expressed like your hardship or, you know, your issue that you're going through, and someone's like, well, I've been through this. And it's like, well, okay, I understand you may have been through something that you believe to be more challenging or more difficult, but I always want people to remember that when people drown in 30 feet of water, just like people drown in 2 feet of water, just because your perspective is that you have struggled in 30 feet doesn't mean that someone in 2 feet is not struggling too. So perspective is beautiful all around. Like,
that's true.
Yeah.
Like we as siblings, we all grew up like in the same family, but we all have different perspectives. You know, like you said earlier, like we have different perspectives of our parents. We have different relationships with them. So our childhood was different for all of us. Like for me and you, for example, like you experienced totally different things than I did, even though it was in the same home.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of parents, like, I don't remember, I really want to give credit to the video I seen this on, but I don't exactly know where it came from. But someone was talking about like, oh, my sister and I had the same parents growing up, but we turned out so different. And I think the therapist is like, you guys didn't have the same parents. You had parents at different stages in their lives. They were different age. Like, you were a boy, she's a girl. Like, you guys were treated differently. You had different parents. So in that way, our perspective is different just from the very beginning. It makes me, perspective has taught me a lot about, as real as my perspective is, yours is as well. Like, I'm very grateful to have 6 brothers because I learn a lot from them. Sometimes I talk to them, I'm like, what? Like, there's no way this is how you feel. But I'm like, wait, I have to pause and remember, like, as real as what my perspective is, yours is too. And I have to hear you for yours. Well, this is our perspective from Chumama House. If you have anything to add on your perspective, we'd love to hear it in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.